Hello and welcome to Godsmarts. I'm Keith Campbell, Independent Bishop of the Home Temple, and today we're going to talk a little bit about biblical morality. Now, what kind of morality does the Bible teach? Or more important, what kind of morality does Jesus actually teach? Does Mar Yeshua teach? Is Jesus' morality just memorizing the right set of rules? Is it allowing Jesus to save us from original sin? Now, we have to be a little bit careful here because concepts like original sin were actually added quite a bit after the time of Jesus. Jesus probably taught in the New Testament some form of the ancient Jewish concept of the yetzer hara and the yetzer tov. Now, this discussion springs from the fact that in Hebrew, when discussing the creation of man, the Bible uses a very special wording. In Genesis 2:7, we're told that God formed man from the dust of the ground. Now, the word used for formed is yetzer, but this one time in the whole Bible, it's spelled with two of the letter Y's instead of just one. Why? Well, why? What does this mean? According to the rabbis, the two Y's in this word stand for yetzer, or impulse. And the fact that this one word, this one time, has the two Y's indicates that man was created by God with two impulses. The yetzer hara, which is an evil impulse, and the yetzer tov, which is a good impulse. But let's talk for a minute about the evil influence, the yetzer hara. It isn't really evil at all. It's a survival influence. It's what keeps us alive and working and surviving and reproducing. All these influences are hardwired into our brain. In fact, this is a bit of an oversimplification, but basically the more primitive or reptile portion of our brain is programmed for survival. It pays extra attention to messages about danger, food, sex. Advertisers know this, and they try to make sure that their ads focus heavily on messages of safety, fear, food, and sexuality to force our brains to pay attention, whether we want to or not. Now, the yetzer tov, on the other hand, the good impulses, those are a series of learned behaviors. They're social. They're adapted to our circumstances to make it sure that our attempts to follow our survival instincts don't get us into trouble with our society. Now, because law and the yetzer tov is social, it can change. It can develop. It can even be wrong. Jesus criticized many of the customs of his own day, such as oath-taking. Again, says Jesus, you've heard that it was said to an older generation, do not break an oath, but fulfill your vows to the Lord. But I say to you, do not take oaths at all, not by heaven, because it is the throne of God, nor by earth, because it is his footstool, and not by Jerusalem, because it is the city of the great king. In fact, Jesus became famous for changing the interpretation of the law to fit the social conditions of his time. For example, Jesus taught, thus, whenever you do charitable giving, do not blow a trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets, so that people will praise them. I tell you the truth, they have their reward. But when you do your giving, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your gift may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Jesus made it a particular point to encourage his apostles to interpret the law according to the needs of the people. Here's how he put it. I am giving you the keys of the kingdom, said Jesus. And whatever you bind on earth will have been bound in heaven, and whatever you release on earth will have been released in heaven. So Jesus uses this phrase, the keys of the kingdom, The rabbis would talk about the keys of the kingdom and use it as a keyword for the need for the mind to interpret the law according to the cultural needs of today. So, how do we examine the Bible then for ethical guidance? Do we search the Bible and find a passage exactly matching our current circumstances and say, there we go? No, I'm afraid we probably don't. Because the Bible was written in an earlier age, and a lot of the material in it would be dismissed by modern minds as inappropriate. And, well, it should be. Whatever moral standard you choose to follow, I can guarantee that there are many passages in the Bible that teach something else. Now, what tends to happen is we search the Bible for an answer, and at best, we don't get a lot of help. And at worst, we tend to get ideas that reinforce our common prejudices. Remember that everything from genocide to slavery to women's fashions have had somebody advocating them based on the Bible. So I think it's time we went back to rule number 1. Do you remember that? The very first video we made in this series, there was always one infallible rule to fall back on if you didn't know how to interpret the Bible. Now, when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they assembled together, and one of them, an expert in religious law, asked him a question to test him. "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" And Jesus said to him, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself." All the law and the prophets depend on these two commandments. So, whatever situation you're facing today, whatever decision you have to make, ask yourself one simple question. What is the most loving choice that I can make? And that will be the right answer. Until next time, I'm Keith Campbell. See you soon.